Welcome to Whispers of History, where sleep comes slowly and the past never really rests. Here we unravel the softer threads of human memory, dark, ancient, and oddly comforting. If you enjoy wandering through forgotten temples and listening to half-true tales under a heavy moon, you're in the right place. Gently press like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always midnight somewhere. Well, the sea is quiet tonight. You drift just beneath its surface, not swimming, not sinking, just suspended. Around you, the world muffles into nothing but the pulse of distant currents and the hollow whispers of ancient rock. You're not cold, not exactly, just aware. Aware that something waits below, something old. The moon above paints silver strokes across the swell, and if you look closely, closer than is wise, you might see shapes too straight to be coral, windows far too square for fish to peer from. You're not supposed to find it. That was the whole point. Welcome to the Drowned Kingdoms. You might not make it through this night, but you'll be in exquisite company. Long before Poseidon wore his seaweed crown and trident charm bracelets, there was another realm beneath the Aegean. A kingdom built not on land, but on breathless devotion to salt and sky. Its name is almost entirely lost, scraped clean by centuries of myth and modern skepticism. But once it echoed across marble halls and echoed even deeper in the minds of those who feared it. And tonight you'll explore it slowly, one barnacle-crusted step at a time. Now let's ease into tonight's journey, shall we? You're walking along a stone corridor that shouldn't exist. Your bare feet feel the cold smoothness of tiles carved by someone with an unreasonable amount of patience and evidently very little sunlight. Torches don't burn here. Instead, a blue glow seeps from cracks in the walls, bioluminescent lichen, perhaps, or some forgotten alchemical trick of the ancients. The air tastes metallic, like old prayers or the inside of a brass key. There's a room ahead. It's perfectly round, absurdly symmetrical and waiting. In the center sits a stone table etched with concentric rings that shift when you blink. They're almost hypnotic, those rings, just don't stare too long. According to one Alexandrian scroll, now held in a museum basement and conveniently misfiled as agricultural doodles of the 3rd century, the Drowned Kingdom was ruled by a queen who never touched the earth. They say she floated above her throne, suspended by sea currents alone, and spoke only in riddles that summoned storms. Whether she was divine, cursed, or simply had phenomenal core strength is up for debate. Scholars still argue whether she truly ruled or if she was merely a symbol of something deeper. Memory, grief, or maybe silence itself. Now here's your cultural curiosity for the night, one so strange it might stick in your dreams. Ancient Greeks in certain island villages believed that if a drowned man's mouth moved with the tide, it meant he was speaking to the sea god, offering confessions through bubbles. They called it the whisper drift, a rare, eerie gift, and a warning. If you heard it echoing through a conch shell, you weren't meant to live much longer. The water rises slightly now, though no drop falls. Just enough to lap at your ankles, just enough to make the table hum. You press your fingers against the carvings and the hum deepens, vibrating gently through your bones. Something ancient has noticed you. You shouldn't be here, but since you are, let's keep going, quietly. The door doesn't open, it recedes. Swallowed into the wall like it was never there, you step through and the passage narrows, ceilings lower, shadows lean in closer. You breathe slowly, purposefully, the way one breathes before reading aloud in a forgotten language. Here's something comforting to know. The Drowned Kingdom wasn't lost all at once. It was patient. It sank in pieces, crumbling colonnades, orphaned altars, gardens full of sea thistle and sacred eels. Entire ballads were written about its demise, though few have survived. The ones that remain are fragments, lines carved onto amphory or sung in dialects so old they sound like weeping wind. You round a curve and enter what appears to be an amphitheater. Half collapsed, yet strangely alive. Sea grass weaves through broken steps. Fish flicker across the stage, and in the back row a statue sits alone. It watches. Its mouth is slightly open, not in song, in surprise. The acoustics in here are unsettling. If you cough, you'll hear it repeated 5 times in slightly different tones, some of which aren't yours. This was where the queen gave her nightly oracles. Not sermons, oracles, lyrical riddles delivered just after sunset, always in rhyme and always ending with the same phrase. The tide gives and the tide forgets. Some thought it was a blessing. Others, a threat, depends on your sins, really. Tonight the stage is quiet, but not empty. The pile of objects rests in the center. A chalice, a harp string, something that might once been a crown but now looks suspiciously like a crab's vacation home. Beside them lies a rolled-up scroll, dry despite the salt. You hesitate, of course, that's healthy. Then you kneel and unroll it. The script is cramped and oddly curved, as if written by someone whose hands were shaped more like fins. It reads, the queen is not asleep, she is submerged in memory. Whether that's metaphor or warning, well, scholars haven't agreed. Some interpret it as a poetic way of saying her legend lives on. Others believe it means she's literally encased somewhere below, waiting for the right dreamer to find her. Now for your strange cultural tidbit. In a lesser-known cult of, followers believed that drowning with your eyes open allowed you to reincarnate as a jellyfish, formless, soft, but eternal. A few ancient mosaics even show this transformation, eerily cheerful. The high priest was said to carry a bell made from human teeth to summon the tides. A soft chime echoes now impossibly. You didn't touch anything, and yet the crown-like shell stirs. Something in this kingdom is remembering you. You rise slowly, the scroll vanishes, or perhaps you never held it. A minor detail lost like so many in stories this old. You leave the amphitheater, and as you walk, the light dims again. That same blue glow pulsing slightly faster now, guiding you deeper. You think of the phrase from before, the tide gives and the tide forgets. But what if this tide remembers? Better not think too loud, things here tend to listen. The corridor tilts downward. Not drastically, not like a slide into doom, more like a suggestion. A gentle incline coaxing you to keep walking, keep trusting, even though your instincts quietly tap on your ribs in protest. You pass beneath an arch made of coral-covered obsidian, dark and gleaming like it remembers fire, not water. Above the arch, words are etched in Ionic script so old they practically sigh in exhaustion. To descend is not to forget. It is to remember differently. No pressure. You follow the curve deeper and the air shifts again. Thicker now, humid like breath fogged against a mirror. The path opens suddenly, like a yawn, into what must have once been a banquet hall. Or a chapel, it's hard to tell. Long tables stretch the length of the room, some upright, others collapsed and cradling barnacles. A few chairs remain intact, their legs warped and slick with time. Draped across one of them is a cloth that hasn't rotted, pearly white and threaded with shimmering blue. It pulses faintly, not like a heartbeat, more like a memory trying to come back. At the far end of the hall, there's a raised dais, and on that dais, bones, arranged with reverence, not chaos. A full skeleton seated upright, arms folded neatly in its lap. A crown of driftwood and iron rests on the skull. It watches you with sockets that seem far too knowing. You stand still. It's rude to interrupt a monarch, even a deceased one. Especially a deceased one. Some say this was the first ruler of the Sea Kingdom, before the floating queen, before oracles and riddles. A war leader turned mystic who declared land to be irrelevant and water the true path to power. According to a cracked fresco hidden in the side vaults of the Delian ruins, this early ruler once tried to build an empire of silence. No words were spoken for 20 years in the kingdom, only gestures, chants, and humming. Historians argue over whether this vow of silence was spiritual discipline or a form of control. One modern archaeologist called it the world's first passive-aggressive dictatorship. She was not invited back to the symposium. And here's your curious belief of the night. Certain fishermen used to sleep with fish bones under their pillows to induce dreams of the sea gods. If they awoke with salt on their lips, it meant the gods had accepted them. If their pillow was gone, well, that didn't happen often. The skeleton on the dais lines slightly, as if whispering something to the table. You don't hear words, you feel them. All feasts end, even the ones we pretend are eternal. One of the fallen goblets tips itself upright as you pass. A nod, perhaps, or an invitation. You choose not to drink. Wise. There's a staircase behind the dais. Not carved stone, but spiraled shell, glossy, iridescent, impossibly intact. You place your hand on the curve, half expecting it to pull away. It doesn't. The steps spiral downward than before. With each turn, the silence grows heavier. It no longer feels like absence. It feels curated, like someone removed all unnecessary sound with tweezers. Even your heartbeat muffles here. Eventually, the staircase opens into a chamber shaped like a drop of water. Rounded walls, smooth floors, and a single object in the middle, a harp. It's huge, taller than you. Made of some pale green bone or shell, strung with threads of silver that haven't rusted or snapped. The strings hum gently when you breathe too close, as if the air carries questions it remembers. You approach carefully, because that's what you do when the room feels too still. They say the harp belonged to the last composer of the kingdom, a blind boy with no tongue who played each night to lull the sea gods to sleep. When he stopped, the floods began. Whether this tale is allegory, propaganda, or someone's overly poetic metaphor for erosion, we still don't know. But the harp is real. A gust of brine-scented air brushes your cheek, and you pluck a string. The sound it makes isn't a note. It's a voice, yours, repeating something you've never said. I am not a trespasser, I am what was lost. You stare at the harp unsettled. The string is still vibrating. Now for your historical moment. In 426 BCE, a massive tsunami struck the coast of Euboea. Ancient texts describe it not just as a disaster, but as a judgment from Poseidon angered by the corruption of a coastal temple. One priest wrote that the sea came not as wave, but as verdict. Strangely poetic for someone being flattened by briny doom. Well, the harp vibrates again, not from touch this time, from recognition. Something below has heard you. And it's listening. In tonight's obscure belief, some Orphic cults believed the soul could only cross into the afterlife if it had sung a true note in life. a sound born of neither joy nor sorrow, but a mix of both. They called it the Gray Song. You're not sure what color your voice is, but the harp seems to think it might be close. The room begins to fade, not vanish, just dim, the way dreams do when morning approaches or when someone else starts dreaming louder than you. You turn, the shell staircase now glows gently upward. A new path opens, water trickling down its center. It leads further in. Further down. Of course you follow. Wouldn't you? The corridor breathes, not literally but close enough. The walls expand and contract ever so slightly, as if exhaling salt and inhaling your presence. With each step, your footprints vanish behind you, erased by a gentle film of mist that rolls across the floor like a sigh from something enormous and sleeping. Ahead, faint outlines of carvings appear in the stone. They're shallow and spidery, delicate enough that you almost don't see them until your fingers pass across their surface. They don't depict battles or kings. No, these show eyes, just eyes, hundreds of them, all different, some human, some less so, all open, all staring. You blink. They don't. You arrive in a narrow chamber filled with hanging lanterns made of glass spheres and tiny metal cages. Inside each one, something small floats, a spark, a fish, a memory. Whatever they are, they glow warmly as you pass beneath them, as if reacting to your presence. Not welcoming exactly, but acknowledging. A stone tablet leans against the far wall, half submerged in seawater that seeps up through the cracks in the floor. The script is in an older form of Linear B, a language so extinct it might as well be fossilized breath. You recognize one symbol, though, the spiral. The spiral appears everywhere in the Drowned Kingdom. On doors, on stones, on the harp's base, on the Queen's lost sigil. Some scholars say it represents the sea, others claim it stands for rebirth. A few even suggest it's a map not of places but of thoughts, paths to be walked inside the mind. Of course, that scholar also licked limestone to taste its age. So, we take him with a grain of ancient sea salt. Tonight's eerie cultural tidbit. In certain Mycenaean burial rituals, mourners poured honey into the ears of the deceased to sweeten the journey through the underworld. The stickier the offering, the kinder the passage. They believed angry spirits craved bitter things, and well-sugared souls passed safely. You kneel beside the tablet, running your hands across the spiral. The stone trembles. Something clicks deep beneath you. The water in the floor parts, not drains, not floods, parts. Revealing stairs. Again, always downward. Down you go into water that doesn't rise with you but instead seems to stay respectfully behind. The air here is heavier, like history that never fully decomposed. Your skin tingles, not unpleasantly, more like standing too close to an old mirror and seeing yourself blink too slowly. The stairs end in a rotunda carved from pale green stone. The walls ripple slightly, even though they're solid. At the center stands a statue tall, draped in flowing robes, head bowed. It's the queen, or a memory of hers. She has no face, or rather her face is worn smooth with time, either sculpted that way or erased by centuries of reverence or fear. In her outstretched hands she holds two objects, a mask and a mirror. Neither feels like a gift. You choose not to touch either, not yet. Carved into the base of the statue are lines of verse, each ending in a downward-pointing triangle. It's a poem written in Greek. It reads something like, When breath forgets the mouth and light forgets the eye. She waits with arms of silence beneath a grieving sky. One path is for the seeker, one path is for the lie. The charming. Now here's your historical note for this stretch of your descent. In 373 BCE, the city was swallowed by the sea after a violent earthquake. Once a thriving hub of Poseidon worship, it vanished overnight, dragging temples, markets, and statues into the deep. Sailors for centuries claimed to see lights from the drowned city flickering beneath the water during certain moon phases. Scientists say it's phosphorescent algae. Locals say it's something else remembering. As for your uncanny cultural tidbit, some ancient Greek actors refused to keep their theatrical masks after performances, fearing the mask had learned their soul. They'd bury them in secret or offer them to shrines. The belief was that a well-worn mask might begin to speak on its own, usually in dreams. You stare at the mask in the statue's hand. It has no mouth, just a wide, hollow eye. You glance at the mirror. It reflects the room, but not you. You decide again, wisely, to touch neither. As you back away, the room dims. The walls shimmer like disturbed water. A new door opens, not in front of you, but behind. The queen remains still. But you swear her head tilts. Just slightly. She's watching. And remembering. Still ready to forget you or not. It depends on which path you choose next. The new corridor is different, not carved from stone, but formed of something soft, almost organic. The walls feel like wet parchment, layered and fibrous, whispering faintly with every step. You resist the urge to run your fingers along them. You've been here long enough to know that curiosity has its own price tag, and it's rarely printed in drachmas. The path leads you to what looks like a library, though the books here don't resemble any you've ever known. The shelves are coral-strung, laced with bone, and the volumes themselves are bound in materials that glisten like fish scales and hum faintly if disturbed. Some are warm to the touch. Some are breathing. The drowned kingdom, it seems, kept its stories alive in more ways than one. You pick up a thin codex, its cover etched with spirals and what appears to be a star chart, or maybe a map of the Queen's mind. You flip it open. No words, just images. A procession of masked figures walking backward into the sea. A boat without oars sailing over a moonlit city. A harp strung with strands of silver hair. You remember that harp. You close the book, it sighs. Tonight's historical moment. During the 2nd century CE, geographer Pausanias documented tales of an underwater temple near Cape, where it was said voices could be heard rising from the sea during the solstice. He dismissed them as fishermen's delusions. But modern sonar scans have since confirmed the presence of submerged structures in that exact region. Are the voices real? Scholars still debate. Some claim the songs are acoustic illusions caused by shifting underwater plates. Others say the sea just doesn't like being ignored. And your cultural oddity for this descent. In certain funerary traditions on the Cycladic Islands, mourners placed a sealed note in the mouths of the dead, personal apologies, confessions, or even complaints. They believed the ocean would carry the messages to the gods or to the ears of their ancestors. You pass another shelf. This one holds only masks. No eyes, just blank ivory faces stacked like offerings. One tilts toward you as you pass, only slightly. You do not look back. You exit through a passage draped with threads of kelp. One clings briefly to your shoulder, then lets go. The books hum behind you. They remember you now. The next chamber is small and circular, like the inside of a pearl. Smooth, seamless, perfect in geometry. In its center floats a single candle flame, unmoving, unmelting. It doesn't flicker. It simply burns, blue and patient, like it's been waiting all this time for someone to ask it a question. You don't speak aloud, that feels inappropriate, but you think something, and the flame flares slightly, not brighter, just more aware. Around the room, there are 12 alcoves. In each stands a statue, robed, faceless, identical except for what they carry. A seashell, a lantern, a jawbone, a tangle of string, a goblet, a mask, a scale, a feather, a mirror, a bell, a knife, and a scroll. Each one watches or listens or waits. This chamber was once the sanctum of the titled jury, an elite order of silent philosophers who judged not laws but memories. In the drowned kingdom, memory had weight. If you remembered something incorrectly, it wasn't simply a mistake, it was a kind of theft. A sin against truth. The jury didn't punish with exile or death. They erased you from remembrance, which down here may have been worse. There's a story of a court scribe who lied in her records, just one line, just once. The next day, she was seen speaking to no one and answering questions no one asked. Within a week, no one knew her name. By the end of the season, she had no reflection. Some say she still walks the lower halls, murmuring facts about people who never lived. You turn slowly. The figure holding the bell tilts forward ever so slightly. It doesn't ring, but your ears fill with a low chime. Tonight's strange belief. A coastal village near modern-day Naxos believed that if you rang a bell underwater during a full moon, you could summon a tide spirit, a creature made of salt and memory, who would answer one question truthfully, then steal a memory of its choosing in return. Many returned wiser. None returned whole. You step toward the exit arch where another spiral is carved into the floor. This one is incomplete, a broken loop. As you cross it, you feel something shift, not around you, but inside you. Something has forgotten your name, and something else has learned it. Downward again, always downward. The sea doesn't like secrets, it hoards them. And you are becoming ones. The walls begin to narrow again, curving inward like the throat of some patient creature. You duck slightly as you walk, even though there's technically still space. Your body just understands instinctively that to stand too tall here would be a kind of offense. The stone beneath your feet changes. It's not rough or tiled anymore, but velvet smooth and faintly translucent like moonlight trapped in quartz. Beneath the surface, shadows move. Not fast, not urgently, more like memories packing an old room, unsure of what they came in for. Eventually, the path opens into a room shaped like an hourglass. The ceiling above and the floor below mirror each other exactly, down to the same cracks, the same flaws. Suspended in the center is a pendulum, but it doesn't swing. It rotates. Slowly, silently, marking time that doesn't quite belong to you. You stare at it too long and it seems to speed up. Or maybe you're just standing still harder than before. The drowned kingdom measured time differently. The queen's advisors kept their clocks tuned to the tides, not the sun. They believed the sea's rhythm told deeper truths, when crops should be planted, when dreams would ripen, when betrayal might bloom. One of the kingdoms lost calendars, recovered, barely legible, from a submerged vault in 1921, contains a 13th month known only as, which translates roughly to the season of echoes. It was a time of no decisions, no contracts, no weddings, and no farewells. During memory was believed to weaken, and dreams could be mistaken for law. Scholars still debate whether was a real observance or the invention of an overly poetic royal scribe. Either way, it sounds like something the world could use again. And here's your haunting tradition of the night. Some ancient divers tied thin strings around their waists before submerging into sacred pools. Not for safety, for remembrance. The belief was that memory traveled down the spine and the string could anchor the soul in the body while the mind wandered through underwater visions. If the string broke, the diver wouldn't drown, but they might not recognize their own face afterward. You back away from the pendulum. It continues rotating, slow, and inevitable. The time down here isn't cruel, just indifferent. You keep moving, and the shadows beneath your feet trail, behind just a little longer than before. The next chamber is vast, cathedral vast. You step into it and instantly feel small in the way that only ruins can make you feel, like you've wandered into the of something divine that died while praying. The pillars rise like drowned trees, curling with barnacles and silken algae. Statues peer down from ledges, their features melted by time and salt, their hands still reaching toward things long gone. At the far end is an altar. Low, broad, covered in carvings so intricate they seem to shimmer when you blink. In its center lies a basin filled with black water, still, polished as obsidian. You already know it's not just water. You approach because of course you do. The surface reflects not your face, but places you've never been, cities of salt, staircases that spiral into void, a garden where statues tend other statues. And then it shows you something you recognize, not from memory, from dream. The queen, or something wearing her shape. She floats above a ruined throne, eyes like closed wounds, mouth gently open as if mid-sigh. Her voice doesn't speak, it drips into you. You've come far for someone who does not yet know why they're here. You blink, the vision disappears. The altar hums. Some say this chamber was where pilgrims came to shed memory, to forget grief, betrayal, names that hurt to hear. The basin was a gift from the deep, a sacred offering from something older than the queen. Its black water drank memory like nectar. Of course, the problem was that some pilgrims gave too much. They left lighter, quieter, eventually silent. Tonight's real-world horror. In the Greek island of a forgotten sect known as the practiced memory fasting, refusing to recall their own names for weeks at a time. They believed identity was a tide, and only in its retreat could they glimpse the eternal. Local legend says some never remembered themselves again and wandered the hills believing they were shadows made flesh. You glance again at the basin. The one ripple, just one. But it's enough. The pillars groan softly, the chamber breathes. You turn away, you don't forget, not yet. But the water remembers you now. And that's a kind of trade, isn't it? You pass through a narrow arch carved to resemble curling kelp or perhaps grasping fingers. It's hard to say which, and either way they don't move. But they could. You'd rather not find out. The passage grows colder, not sharply but deeply. A quiet kind of cold, the kind that lingers behind old church doors or under grandmother's bed, where winter never quite leaves. You exhale, and though there's no frost, your breath feels like a ghost deciding whether to stay. The hallway leads to a chapel. Yes, this one is unmistakably sacred. The vaulted ceiling glimmers with barnacled mosaics, tiny tiles of pearl and obsidian arranged in constellations that don't exist anymore, or maybe never did. In the center stands an altar not made for sacrifice but for listening. It's shaped like an ear. No, really. A perfect ear carved 10 feet tall into a pillar of pale limestone spiraling inward like a conch shell. You stand before it and it hums. Welcome to the Hall of... The drowned kingdom believed that grief had weight and that the ocean, unlike the gods of Olympus, was willing to bear it. Citizens would come here to speak their sorrows into the ear, not aloud, just by standing close. The stone would draw the mourning out like seawater from a wound. Some returned comforted. Others reported dreams so vivid they refused to speak of them. One even tried to marry the sea. It didn't go well. Your historical tidbit tonight. In the 5th century BCE, Herodotus mentioned a now-lost island known only as said to be ruled by widows and haunted by weeping stones. Modern scholars believe this was poetic metaphor. Others claim to have found chunks of coral-encrusted marble with ear-shaped carvings off the coast of. But who funds ghost archaeology, really? And here's your unsettling belief of the hour. Some Greco-Roman households kept tiny clay coffins not for children but for regrets. Inside, they'd place tokens of mistakes, broken charms, twisted rings, written apologies, and bury them in salt pits beneath their homes. The idea was that guilt, once housed properly, would stop haunting you. You linger by the stone ear. And though you don't speak, you feel something leave you, something small, something you weren't aware you were carrying. You step away just a little lighter. But something in the ear trembles. It's listening still. And now it knows your voice. You take a stairwell hidden behind a velvet drape of sea moss. It coils downward like a winding with each turn. The scent changes, less salt now, more mineral, with an undercurrent of something you can't name. It smells like time forgotten to rot. At the base, a long hall unfurls, its floor a checkerboard of white and stone. The white squares are clean. The ones aren't. Some are cracked, others scorched. One seems to breathe. You step carefully. The walls here are lined with masks. Hundreds, maybe thousands, no two the same, all expressionless yet unmistakably watching. Welcome to the corridor of borrowed faces. In the drowned kingdom, masks weren't costumes. They were vessels. People wore them not to hide, but to hold parts of themselves they didn't want to keep inside: rage, grief, fear, madness. You could wear a mask for a day and feel peace. But the rule was, never wear it longer than one tide. Because if you did, the mask might remember how it felt to be alive. And not want to stop. Tonight's historical thread. In 1922, divers near the island of discovered a submerged stone vault filled with ceramic masks, some smiling, some screaming, all etched with tiny inscriptions on the inside. One bore the phrase, "I used to be him." It remains untranslated, officially. And your eerie belief. A sect of sea priests called the believed that dreams escaped through the eyes while sleeping, and that masks helped keep unwelcome thoughts in place. They'd sleep with their masks tied tight, sometimes so tight they. One of the masks on the wall is missing its string. Its mouth is open, wider than the others. You don't stay long. You walk faster than usual. Just before the corridor ends, one of the tiles shifts beneath your foot. Not enough to trip you, just enough to remind you that nothing down here is really still. The masks rattle softly behind you. Like bones, like applause. You emerge into a long, narrow gallery dimly lit by what appears to be an entire wall of jellyfish suspended behind a sheet of crystalline glass. They drift lazily, illuminating the space in soft pulses, gentle heartbeats of bioluminescence. The light is soothing yet off somehow, like candlelight at a funeral. The gallery is filled with statues again, but these are different. They aren't regal or divine or reverent, they're mid-motion, mid-fall. One clutches its chest, mouth open in a soundless scream. Another shields its face. A third reaches upward, but there's nothing above to grasp. These aren't gods, these are moments. This is the hall of the last breath. According to an obscure Delphic tablet, never officially and often dismissed as ritualistic performance art, the drowned kingdom believed that one's final breath became an echo. Not just sound, but substance. A ripple in memory. This chamber was sculpted in honor of those echoes, each statue created by artisans said to work in trance, pulling from dreams, not models. There's no plaque, no names, just postures. Panic, regret, surrender, awe, the final chapter of lives now unread. You move slowly between them, careful not to disturb the air. One of the statues has no face. It's not worn, it's unfinished or waiting. Tonight's actual historical moment. In 480 BCE, the Persian fleet mysteriously retreated from the shores of Delos after reporting a silver fog on the waves, which whispered in dead languages. Official historians chalked it up to superstition, but naval logs preserved in broken fragments mention seeing figures beneath the surface walking. Whether hallucination or collective myth, no one returned to that beach for 10 years. And your eerie belief for this evening. Some ancient coastal cultures held that when a person drowned in rage, their last breath became a wind ghost, a spirit that clung to caves and cliff sides, waiting for someone with a matching temper to whisper through. The only way to pacify it, singing lullabies backward. You reach the end of the gallery. A final statue stands alone, smaller than the others, kneeling, head bowed, hands clasped not in prayer but in apology. Its breath never left. You feel it pass through you like mist. You exhale instinctively, and something else exhales back. You leave the gallery behind and step through a narrow arch flanked by sea glass wind chimes. They tinkle as you pass, though there's no breeze, just your presence. And presence is enough here. This room is circular, low-ceilinged, and warm, surprisingly warm. The walls are covered in copper plates, each engraved with symbols, some geometric, others like creatures, fish, birds, masks, tears. They shine dimly in the glow of a massive brazier that burns with a greenish flame. No smoke, no sound, just heat and light and memory. This is the breathing forge. It's not for metal, not anymore. The drowned kingdom believed fire was a cousin to memory, consuming, reshaping, capable of brightening or erasing. Here, in this hidden place, people brought their most painful recollections, their sharpest regrets, and cast them into the brazier. But first, they wrote them on copper, and if the flame accepted the offering, the engraving would disappear. If not, it would glow red and remain forevers. You find a small plate on the floor. Someone dropped it or left it behind. It reads, "I knew what the tide would take, and I let it come anyway." You place it gently back where it was. Tonight's historical thread. A recovered scroll from the 4th century BCE describes a secret ritual among ocean-bound priestesses known as the unshoring. In it, initiates were required to burn a personal object and then swim into the sea, searching for what remained. If they returned with nothing, they were accepted. If they returned with something, they were turned away. The scroll doesn't say why. And here's your eerie cultural tidbit. In one village on the coast of ancient Ionia, people left copper bowls at grave sites during storms. The belief, lightning would strike the copper and wake the dead for just a moment. Enough to say goodbye, or sometimes not. The brazier hums louder now. It doesn't flare, it just knows you're here. You don't have a copper plate to offer, but something deep in your chest feels warm. A memory, maybe, or guilt. The flame brightens slightly, then settles. Accepted. You move toward the next hall. The green fire continues burning. And the copper whispers behind you. Someone still remembers. The next corridor is plush. You weren't expecting that. After stone, coral, and bone, this feels strange, almost indecent. The walls are padded with moss that feels like velvet soaked in moonlight, and the floor gives slightly underfoot, like walking on old theater seats. The hallway curves inward like a conch shell. You follow it because, of course, you do. It leads to a round room, empty except for a chair. A throne, technically, but not royal. It's too lived in. The armrests are worn, the cushions slumped in the center like someone used to sit there often and with purpose. Etched on the back in a script you almost recognize, the throne of the one who watched. This isn't the queen's seat. This belonged to the listener. The drowned kingdom, according to a fragment found in a marble vase near modern-day Naxos, believed in separating power from observation. Rulers ruled, but the listener listened, to dreams, to echoes, to the stone. Each night while the queen issued her riddles, the listener sat here and simply heard the walls. No one knew their face. They never spoke aloud. They remembered everything. The scholars disagree on whether this role was symbolic, like a living archive, or if it was a real person, or many, tasked with absorbing the memory of the place. One eccentric historian claimed the listener's mind grew so large it split into a colony of seabirds. He may have been joking, hard to tell. He also believed clams were time travelers. And tonight's cultural curiosity. In a few eastern Aegean settlements, children were told that if they spoke too loudly near the shore, the listener would take their words and turn them into waves that would come back years later twisted. It was their version of watch what you say. You approach the chair. It's warm. You don't sit, but your shadow does. You stand still, the room hums. Softly at first, then more insistently, like hundreds of voices murmuring just below hearing, not talking to you through you. You don't understand the language, but part of you does. You step back, the shadow doesn't follow, and the murmurs don't stop. You exit into a long, low tunnel. This one is carved not from stone, but from what looks like compressed salt, white, crystalline, faintly luminous. When you exhale, your breath leaves tiny clouds that linger in the cold. The tunnel opens slowly into a cavern so vast, the far end is lost in darkness. The ceiling vanishes overhead, and in the center, a lake. Yes, a lake beneath the sea. Still and perfect, mirror flat, untouched by ripple or time. It smells faintly of lilies and rain, a strange thing so deep below. This is the reflection pool. No bridges, no boats, just the water. They say this is where the queen came to remember who she had been before the throne. She'd stand at the edge and stare, not into her own face, but into the lives she had discarded, the faces she might warn instead. One line in a ruined hymnal suggests the queen had a twin once, born still and buried in the walls of the palace. Whether true or myth, the song ends with, "I became both." Some believe this pool is where that transformation occurred. Your historical moment tonight. In 1997, divers discovered an underground lake beneath the Mediterranean seabed, trapped between layers of rock. The water was completely isolated, untouched for. When disturbed, it released gases and the scent of crushed flowers. The lake was sealed off for safety, and for reasons no one quite published. And tonight's eerie tradition. In some Greek fishing villages, elders told stories of mirror ghosts, reflections that appeared beside you in water or glass but didn't move when you did. These ghosts weren't malevolent. They were warnings that a part of you was already gone. You kneel at the edge of the pool. The surface shimmers gently. You look down, and you see someone else. Not a stranger. Not entirely you. Someone in between. They blink once, then slowly raise a hand. You do not. The water trembles, and your reflection smiles. You don't move, neither does the reflection. But the water between you stirs, as if aware it's being watched by two things that shouldn't be meeting. A soft vibration hums up through your knees from the lake's edge. It isn't aggressive. It's more like a pulse checking that you're still real. You are mostly. Then the surface stills again. The other you fades, not disappears, just steps back as if making room. The air shifts. That faint liliandraine scent gives way to something older. Parchment, beeswax, stone rubbed smooth by decades of quiet fingers. The pool begins to drain. Not with violence or sound. Just slowly folding itself downward, revealing steps carved into its bed, spiraling, always the spiral. You descend, and as you do, the water seals behind you like a closing eyelid. The passage below is narrower than the others, more intimate. There's a silence here that isn't empty, it's concentrated, heavy, so thick you feel it pressing on your teeth. Small alcoves line the walls. In each rests a relic, a locket, a child's sandal, a loop of hair, a broken flute. None are labeled, there's no need, each one holds a memory, but not yours. This is the archive of the forgotten. The drowned kingdom kept no written census, no birth records or death scrolls. Instead, they placed tokens of the nameless here, objects linked to people lost to sea or shadow, preserved in salt and secrecy. Once a year, the queen walked this path alone, nomming as many relics as she could. The ritual was called the reclaiming. According to myth, the more names she spoke, the longer her reign would last. No one knows what happened the year she went silent. And tonight's historical oddity. In 1904, a sponge diver off the coast retrieved a box containing a single gold earring and a woven bracelet made of obsidian threads. A scrap of lead inside read simply, "For the one no longer spoken." And your eerie belief of the night. On the island of, it was once tradition to whisper the names of forgotten ancestors into jars and seal them with wax. These were kept in the family hearth. If the wax ever cracked on its own, it meant the forgotten had returned, and should be fed. You pass a relic shaped like a crescent moon, etched with teeth marks. It thrums slightly as you walk by. Not angry, not eager, just aware. While you descend deeper, the relics thin out. And then you reach a door, carved with a spiral. Naturally, the door doesn't open, it exhales. A hiss of air, warm and tinged with copper, slides past you as the stone shifts sideways, revealing a chamber soaked in blue. The color isn't painted or lit, it is. It hangs in the air like a sound you can almost hear. This is the vault of the Oracle. It's not the Queen's Oracle, not the one who sang riddles in the amphitheater. No, this is older. This is the oracle they buried beneath the throne. The chamber is round, shallow, and filled with water up to your ankles. The floor is glass, beneath it you see bones. Thousands, small, compact, delicate, bird bones, fish bones, human bones, all arranged in spirals. In the center of the room there is no statue, no altar. There is only a mouth. A stone mouth, wide and waiting, carved into the floor like an open wound in a marble face. Its lips are cracked. Its teeth are too many. The drowned kingdom believed this was the original voice of the sea, not a god, not a queen, but something primal. It whispered truths so unbearable, only the dead could hold them. Once a generation, someone would kneel and ask it a question. The mouth always answered. Well, once, but the answer always cost something unnamed. Well, you're not here to ask, you're just here to listen. And it speaks, not aloud. Then you. The kingdom did not drown, it folded, inward in silence, because silence remembers more gently than stone. You inhale sharply, and the water around your feet warms. Tonight's historical reference. In the ruins of archaeologists discovered a spiral-shaped ossuary filled with tiny animal bones and one human skull carved with symbols around the eye sockets. The inscription read, "It heard too much." And your uncanny custom of the night. In parts of ancient Thessaly, seers believed the future could be drawn from the shape of a person's breath as it struck cold water. The breath was captured in bowls and read like tea leaves, though only by blind elders who swore that clarity was blindness turned inside out. You back away from the mouth, it doesn't close. But the bones beneath the floor shift slightly, just a tremble just enough. You've heard what you needed to hear, whether or not you wanted to. The mouth doesn't follow you, but the silence does. As you step backward through the doorway, the chamber behind you seals itself. Not with a thud, not with a scrape, just a final breath. A punctuation mark at the end of a sentence you don't remember starting. You're in a tunnel again, narrower now, closer. The walls are smooth, polished by more than time, perhaps by ritual, or by the brushing of many, many shoulders. The spiral returns here, not carved, but in the path itself. The hallway loops, coils, and unwinds around you like a thought you can't quite remember. Eventually, you arrive at a chamber shaped like an hourglass turned on its side. This is the Chamber of Undoing. The walls are covered in small doors, hundreds of them, each no bigger than your palm. Drawers maybe, or safes. They're made of driftwood, bleached and brittle. You approach one, marked with the symbol for remembered shame. Inside is a lock of hair. Another contains a child's tooth. Another a coin scorched black. Another empty. that one feels heavier than the rest. This is where the drowned kingdom stored its regrets. Not in vaults, not in stories, but in pieces. Fragments of moments too delicate to keep, too dangerous to throw away. According to a rare slab fragment held at the Heraklion Museum, these drawers were opened only once a year under moonless tides. The queen walked through with her eyes closed, touching one drawer at random. If the regret within was hers, she kept it. If not, it was returned. Historians have no record of what happened if she opened too many. And tonight's historical flicker. In 1885, beneath the ruins of an old theater in Rhodes, archaeologists uncovered a wall with tiny recesses filled with personal artifacts. Faded dolls, carved teeth, broken flutes, each tagged with a wax-sealed name scroll. Some were blank. Others were written in a script not found elsewhere in Greece. And your eerie custom for the hour. In a now-vanished mountain village near Sparta, mourners were encouraged to give their sorrow a drawer. Small wooden boxes painted with symbols were passed down through generations, but never opened. If a box was opened too soon, it was said the grief inside would relearn your name. One drawer here is slightly ajar. Inside, a spiral-shaped pendant made of tarnished silver. Oh, you recognize it, as though you do know why. Oh, and that's worse. You pass out of the chamber and into another hall, this one arched like a lined with hanging glass orbs. Inside each orb is a flame, but these don't flicker. They glow steadily, stubbornly, like memories that refuse to fade. This is the passage of kept promises. The flames are vows, spoken beneath the waves, etched into air, sealed with breath. When someone in the drowned kingdom made a promise and meant it, truly meant it, a piece of their intent was collected and suspended here. You walk slowly. The air is warmer now, heavier. One orb hums as you pass. It pulses once, then fades again. Some promises are still waiting. There's an altar at the end of the passage, small and plain, made from deep black stone flecked with white. A book lies open atop it, but not a book made of paper. The pages are wafer-thin stone, inscribed with deep grooves filled with gold dust. You can't read the language, but the shape of the words feels familiar. A line catches your eye. It glows faintly just as you look at it. I will return when silence is ready. This was not a book of rules, it was a ledger, a record of truths spoken in darkness. Your historical moment tonight. In 1909, a diver mapping ruins near Crete reported hearing a choir of voices emanating from a collapsed stone vault. The expedition was cut short after several crew members claimed to dream in unknown languages for weeks afterward. The vault's entrance was resealed with lead. And your eerie tradition. Some ancient Minoans believed a broken promise left a stain on the soul that would rise to the surface of the skin after death. The corpse would be marked with black spirals, often on the palms or forehead, visible warnings for the gods not to listen too closely. You place your hand on the altar. Though nothing happens. Then again, not all promises are yours to keep. As you turn to leave, the orb nearest you pulses again. And this time, it doesn't fade. It burns, but gently. Like recognition. The next hall is made entirely of mirrors. Not smooth modern ones, but old warped glass clouded with salt rimmed in coral. Some are cracked. Others ripple faintly as if remembering how to be water. This is the gallery of echoed selves. You've entered it because in the drowned kingdom, identity was believed to be layered. Not a single self, but a shell made of moments. Each mirror here shows a version of someone who passed through, a child they used to be, a regret that still breathed, a desire never spoken aloud. You walk past the first mirror. It shows someone turning away from the sea. The second, someone kneeling in prayer, their hands trembling. The third, yourself, not now but younger or older, or simply quieter. Each reflection blinks slightly out of rhythm with you, a hesitation. A test. You don't stop walking, you shouldn't. They say the queen passed through this gallery every 10th moon. She left no reflection behind. None of the mirrors would hold her. It was considered a mark of sovereignty and danger. There's a tablet near the far wall covered in algae. You brush it off. It reads, "The more you see, the more you are seen. Choose carefully which part of yourself you wish remembered." And tonight's eerie historical note. In 1926, a series of mosaics was unearthed beneath the ruins of a submerged port near. Each panel depicted a different figure standing before a mirror, but their reflections were always faceless. One was captioned, "The Honest Lie." And here's your cultural tidbit. In ancient Thera, during a festival called, people wore veils soaked in and gazed into silver bowls under moonlight, attempting to see who they are not. If the vision was pleasing, it was said the gods approved. If not, the bowl was buried, and so was the veil. You pass a mirror that holds nothing, no reflection at all. Well, you stop. For a moment, the silence leans closer. And then your image returns, but it's smiling. You are not. You move on. Quicker now. You emerge from the gallery into a narrow vestibule lined with small, singing bowls. They resonate gently, as if sensing your heartbeat, tuning themselves to your pulse. This is the antechamber of discarded names. In the drowned kingdom, names were temporary. They believed a name should fit the life you were living, and once that changed, so too should the name. Some people had 5 names in a lifetime, some none. The queen, according to fragmentary scrolls recovered from the ocean floor near Lesbos, once held 7 names, one for ruling, one for mourning, one for dreaming, and so on. But in her final years, she had none. Her presence was enough. The singing bowls here were used in name-shedding rituals. A person would speak their name into the bowl, ring it, and wait. If the bowl stopped ringing too quickly, the name wasn't ready to be let go. One bowl here is still vibrating. You didn't touch it. You kneeled beside it curious. The name inside sounds something like, "It isn't yours, but it stirs something in you anyway." Tonight's historical event. In 1962, an inscription was found on a sunken pillar near the Cycladic Islands. It read, "Name me and I return, forget me and I remain." Linguists argued for decades over whether it was myth, metaphor, or prophecy. The pillar is now on display in a museum, but they refuse to clean it. Visitors say their reflections in the glass display case sometimes move on their own. And here's your strange belief of the night. Some Ionian healers believed that names could anchor illness. If a sick person whispered their own name into a river, they could trick the spirit of disease into following it downstream. But if the river dried up before it reached the sea, well, you can imagine. You stand slowly. The bowl's vibration finally stops. You feel lighter, but not better. Names carry weight, even the ones we never speak aloud. A narrow stairwell leads forward and down. Always down. The stairwell grows colder as you descend, but not in a way that bites. It's the kind of cold that's polite. The kind that wraps around your shoulders like a grandmother's shawl, hiding secrets in its folds. You follow the spiral. Yes, it's a spiral again, until it empties into a chamber lit by a single orb suspended in midair. It floats without flickering, casting soft, amber light over a floor tiled in concentric circles. In the center of the room, a basin, shallow and still. This is the chamber of unspoken farewells. Here, mourners came not to grieve the dead, but to say goodbye to the living. Those they had lost through silence, exile, misunderstanding. Those whose bodies remained, but whose presence had already been claimed by some other tide. The basin was never filled with water, only tears. Collected drop by drop, held for a season, then offered to the sea. A ritual meant to keep one foot in memory and the other in forgiveness. You walk slowly to the edge. There's no water in it now. Only faint stains, dried salt, scattered hairline cracks, a few scattered grains of sand that haven't moved in centuries. Well, you stare down and hear something. It's not loud, not clear, just a murmur, a familiar one. A voice from a time before you were here, or perhaps before you were you. One word, wise. It's not a question, it's an answer waiting to forget. Tonight's eerie historical fact. A funerary tablet recovered from Delos in 1883 references a group known as the Mourning Women who specialized in grieving for those never physically lost, only forgotten by choice. They wept for the severed relationships, the ones that frayed but never snapped. Their tears were stored in glass vials sealed with wax and buried in cliffside crevices. Some have been found, none opened. And here's your cultural strangeness for the night. In old Arcadian folklore, it was said that if you whispered a farewell into an empty bowl, it would carry your voice to the ears of the person you never got to say goodbye to, but only if they, too, regretted the silence. You whisper nothing, you don't need to. The air already knows. Now the orb flickers once, and then you step quietly through a side arch. You leave the room, but it does not leave you. The corridor narrows into a hallway lined with hundreds of them made of bone, shell, rusted silver. They don't ring, not yet. Your steps are careful, silent, but still one chime flutters, not by touch but by recognition. This is the passage of returned whispers. The drowned kingdom believed that every word spoken with intention would one day come back to you, not metaphorically, literally, in wind, in wave, in echo. This corridor was constructed to contain those words. Each chime holds one whisper, a promise, a secret, a threat, some good, some not. You don't want to know which are which. Halfway through, you see a chime wrapped in scythe thread etched with your name, not your spoken name, the one you carry deeper. You pause. While the chime moves, it doesn't ring, it sighs. You feel it in your ribs, like you're about to say something out loud but forget the words at the last second. Tonight's historical note. In 1869, a sunken amphora was pulled from the sea near Ithaca. Inside were 12 pieces of coral, each carved with a single word in an untranslatable dialect. When pressed to the ear, the coral emitted faint, almost human murmurs. They were eventually buried in a private crypt after several museum staff reported insomnia and auditory hallucinations. And tonight's obscure tradition. On the island of Samos, mothers once gave their children whisper stones, tiny, polished pebbles on which a blessing or protection spell was spoken, then sealed with wax. Children were told to keep them close but never listen. If a child cracked the wax and heard the whisper too early, it was said their dreams would no longer belong to them. The wind picks up slightly. One chime rattles, then another, then a dozens. Soft sounds, gentle, some full of longing. One sounds like laughter from long ago. And one sounds like your voice, whispering something you've never said out loud. You hurry through the rest of the corridor, head bowed, hands clenched. Not afraid, just aware. That words never really leave. They just wait. The fade behind you, but not completely. You'll likely hear them again, probably in dreams, possibly when you least expect it. The next chamber is low, quiet, and round, so round it feels like standing inside a whisper. The walls are entirely covered in script, thousands upon thousands of lines carved not in orderly rows but spiraling outward from the floor to the ceiling in a single continuous coil. The letters twist like seaweed in a current. Some seem ancient, others oddly modern. You've entered the spiral of lies. Don't worry, it's not personal. Everyone ends up here. In the Drowned Kingdom, it was believed that truth and lies were not opposites, but siblings. Lies weren't punishable because they were seen as necessary stories, placeholders, emotional prosthetics. But they did need to be stored somewhere, and so they were spoken here into the spiral. Once whispered, a lie would be carved into the stone by silent scribes, who, according to half a fresco and 3 badly translated prayers, could only hear things that were never true. As each generation added to the spiral, the goal wasn't to untangle it, the goal was to keep it turning. You step lightly into the room. The script hums beneath your feet, faint as a held breath. Near the center is a small pedestal with a single copper bowl. Beside it, a worn inscription. If it was harmless, speak it again. You don't. Very wise. Tonight's real-world footnote. In 1977, off the coast of Paros, divers uncovered a spiral-shaped shrine with no ceiling carved deep into the seabed. The walls were etched with lines of text in multiple languages: Greek, Aramaic, Latin, and one unknown script. Linguists labeled it a ceremonial archive. Locals whispered that it was a confession that never stopped writing itself. And here's your obscure belief of the night. In a forgotten Thessalian ritual, people would gather once a year to confess lies to the ocean. They'd shout them into jars, seal them with wax, and toss them from the cliffs. If the jar floated, the lie was forgiven. If it sank, the sea would remember, and it might echo it back someday in another voice. You stand in the spiral for a long time. Nothing speaks, but everything listens. You turn, and the walls shimmer slightly. You've told no lies, but you've thought a few. And that's enough. The spiral leads you predictably downward once again. You don't protest. You're past that now. This new path is narrow but luminous, not with light from fire or glowworms. The walls here pulse with soft, milky bioluminescence, like you're walking through the veins of a dreaming whale. This is the threshold of sleepers. The Drowned Kingdom believed that some people did not die, not properly. They simply became too heavy with memory to remain awake, and so they slept, not in tombs, in chambers. Awaiting. You step into a vault where stone beds line the walls like niches in a catacomb. Each one holds a figure wrapped in gauzy, sea-colored fabric. Still, silent, undisturbed. But definitely not empty. No names, no markings. Just a faint sense of recognition that coils in your chest. You approach one bed not to touch, just to be close. The figure beneath the gauze does not move, but you swear the gauze rises slightly with each breath. They are dreaming. As all of them. In the drowned kingdom, it was said that the dreamers bore the kingdom's memory, that each one dreamed a different version of the place, and as long as they slept, the kingdom could never truly disappear. A few scrolls recovered from a flooded cave near describe an annual vigil held outside this very chamber. People would sing, not hymns, but old household melodies. Songs about rain, about bread, about stubborn animals and lost children. Everyday things, memory songs. No one dared enter except the queens. She visited alone, placing a seashell by each dreamer's head, not for sound, but to catch their final breath should they ever wake. Tonight's historical fragment. In 2003, sonar mapping near the coast revealed a hollow dome structure deep beneath the seabed, with a faint rhythmic vibration recorded inside. The project was discontinued. The lead diver cited emotional disturbances. He refused to elaborate. And your chilling tradition. In ancient, mourners once wrapped their dead in cloth soaked with lavender and seawater, believing the scent would ease their journey into sleep. If the scent faded too quickly, it was said the sleeper had not settled. You walk slowly through the chamber. A breeze, not wind, just pressure, moves across your shoulder. One of the dreamers exhales. You do not look back. You bow your head and continue down. The descent is slower now, not because the slope has changed, though it has, but because you have. Your pace is no longer cautious. It's reverent, measured, as if your body has realized something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. The tunnel narrows, then widens into an immense chamber filled with still water, dark, bottomless, reflecting the stone ceiling above like a second sky. There is no path across. This is the Mirror Sea. No bridges, no boats. Only an island in the center. You can't see how far it is, only that it's reachable, and that it wants to be reached. The drowned kingdom believed that the soul, like the tide, had two shores, one visible, one secret. The Mirror Sea was built to lie between them. Those who made it this far had to cross the water, not by swimming, not by sailing, but by remembering how. According to half-preserved legend, the queen herself crossed the Mirror Sea once, only once during the last year of her reign. When she returned, she never spoke again, and she never blinked. Some say she saw her own soul on the island. Others say she left it there. You step to the edge, the water does not ripple, you extend your foot, and though you expect cold, what greets you is warmth, not liquid, not air, something in between. You take another step, and walk. The surface holds you. Of course it does, you've earned it. Tonight's real-world mystery. In 1973, a team of underwater explorers mapped a subterranean lake beneath Santorini and reported unusual magnetic fields surrounding a circular formation at its center. They were never able to reach it. Each attempt was interrupted by equipment failure and, in one case, inexplicable loss of time. A dive clock recorded 10 minutes. The diver swore he had been gone 2 hours. And your belief for this hour. In some Thessalian ghost rites, mourners were told to walk around a still body of water 3 times before saying goodbye, once for the past, once for the present, and once for the name the dead would wear in the next life. If the water rippled, they weren't gone yet. You reach the center of the lake. There is no island. Only a stone. A small, simple spiral carved. You kneel beside it, and hear a voice behind you. It says your name, but not the one you use now. The one you forgot. You do not turn around. You stay kneeling by the stone, hands resting lightly on its surface. It's warm beneath your fingertips, not geologically warm, emotionally warm. You breathe once. The voice speaks again, not louder, not clearer, but closer. It is your voice and not. It says it's time, but doesn't explain for what. This is the island after all, the center of the spiral. The end of the path that never had an end. You look down, the stone beneath your hands is changing, or rather remembering. It unfurls in slow, glowing lines, revealing not words but images. The queen, the listener, the harp, the basin, the chamber of dreamers, the spiral of lies. The mirror sea. Every place you've been is here, etched into the stone like veins. The spiral connects them all. One breath, one kingdom, one slow forgetting. And now you. Your presence is part of the map. Tonight's historical curiosity. A researcher from the Hellenic Institute once reported a dream in which she walked through a drowned city that responded to her memories, changing as she remembered things differently. She awoke with sea salt on her skin and a spiral drawn in ink on her palm. She had no ink in the house. The report was quietly removed from publication. And here's your eerie belief. On certain Cycladic isles, the spiral was considered not a symbol but a door. Children were taught to draw spirals in the sand before they fell asleep, in hopes of finding their ancestors in dreams. If the spiral was gone by morning, it meant someone had stepped through. You place your hand in the center of the carved stone. The voice stops, not because it's finished, because it's waiting. You close your eyes, and in the dark you feel it, the kingdom, not around you, in you. It's always been in here. The spiral does not end. It folds, and begins again. You remain still, not out of fear, but because movement feels unnecessary. The spiral has stilled around you. The world is no longer turning, or perhaps it's simply turning with you now. The stone beneath your hand pulses once, softly, like a breath in your palm. Then the glow fades and the map closes back into itself, sealing shut without a sound. No click, no rumble, just silence. You rise slowly. There's nowhere left to walk, no more downward stairs, no further chambers. But something opens anyway. Not behind you, not ahead, inside. Your chest feels warmer, heavier, and lighter all at once, like someone, just folded a piece of history into your lungs. Well, you inhale and it stays. Well, this is the chamber of return. But there's no doorway, not in the conventional sense, only the sense that something has unlatched. The queen, according to a fragment scrawled in rust-colored ink on a ceramic plate buried off the coast of, once said, "All things return, even those who forget why they left." Now, she may not have meant it literally, but here, literally is a matter of suggestions. Well, you close your eyes again, and the spiral moves. Not physically, not visually. As it moves through you, the places pass across your thoughts like dreams pressed to a window. You see the amphitheater again, the harp, the breathless basin, the forest of masks, the memory chamber, the sleeping ones, the ear carved from stone. They recognize you now. They do not bow or cheer or whisper. They just allow you to be. Tonight's historical echo. In 1938, a small pendant was discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of the Peloponnese. Etched into its back were these words in Old Ionic. "I found it and it found me. I left it and it stayed." The scholars have debated for decades whether the pendant refers to a place, a belief, or a person. The pendant was lost in a museum fire 5 years later. No replica exists. Only that line remains, reprinted in obscure academic journals. And your eerie tradition. In a secluded village near Ancient, mourners would walk backwards out of funerals so their soul wouldn't follow the dead. If their shadow turned the wrong way during this ritual, they were instructed to never return to that path again, not in life, not in dream. Well, you open your eyes and realize the spiral has taken you back to the beginning. Not physically, not spatially, but emotionally. You are standing not where you started, but as who you started. And that here is far more important. There's no exit sign, no triumphant crescendo of music, no curtains. You simply begin walking again. This time the halls feel different, not because they've changed, but because you have. The blue-lit tunnels no longer pulse like a warning. Now they breathe beside you quietly, a shared rhythm, a conversation in silence. You pass through a familiar chamber, the one with the listener's chair. It's still empty, still warm. Your shadow doesn't sit in it this time. It walks beside you. You pass the wall of tiny drawers. The one that once held the spiral pendant is closed now, locked, as if whatever was stored there is no longer needed. You pass the harp, it no longer hums, but the silence it leaves behind feels musical. You pass the basin. The surface no longer reflects another version of you, just this one, and that's enough. The drowned kingdom doesn't speak in grand gestures. It never did. Its legacy is quieter. A hums, a sigh. It's a dream that rearranges your memories like furniture, until you realize the house you live in is no longer quite your own. Tonight's historical shimmer. In 2006, a deep-sea research probe passing near a previously uncharted trench recorded a low, rhythmic vibration echoing through the rock layers. When sped up and translated into frequencies audible to the human ear, the sound resembled a chorus of voices singing in D minor. The scientists called it geological coincidence. The locals called it a lullaby. And your final eerie custom of the night. Some ancient Aegean islanders left a single breadcrumb on the shore before setting out to sea, not to find their way back, but to remind the sea that they had a home. You walk now through the outer corridors, the ones where no doors remained. It's where only memory holds the walls together. And the spiral hums beneath your feet. Not louder, not softer. No, just enough to remind you that you are still part of it. And always were. You step lightly now. Each footfall feels deliberate, like placing thoughts rather than weight. The corridor is no longer new, it's known. You recognize the spiral curves, the flicker of algae-lit walls, the distant breath of something ancient and alive. But now it feels less like you're trespassing and more like you've been expected. You find yourself back near the vestibule of chimes. Some still sway slightly, some are still. The whisper shaped like your name is quiet now, or perhaps it's asleep. You nod to it just once. It doesn't respond, but something eases in your chest. There's a small archway that wasn't there before, or maybe you couldn't see it until now. You pass through into a narrow hall with a ceiling so low you instinctively duck. It feels like threading your way into the eye of the spiral. The air is warmer again, drier, more intimate. You've arrived at the chamber of final memories. The drowned kingdom kept no graves, no mausoleums or tombs. The dead were not sealed away, they were carried, not physically, in memory. And here is where the last of those memories were kept. A circle of stone pedestals surrounds the room, each holding an item. An hourglass filled with ash, a cracked mirror, a spool of red thread, a book made of woven kelp. Each one pulses faintly, like a dream trying to wake itself. You approach the thread, and just before your fingers brush it, a whisper, not sound but sensation, moves through your thoughts. A pull too hard and the dream unravels. You leave it be. Tonight's historical discovery. In 1971, a caver exploring a flooded grotto near Mount Pelion found a chamber deep beneath the surface. On the walls, symbols not seen elsewhere in Greek archaeology. In the center, a stone platform with an hourglass resting on top, its sand still flowing. It was encased and moved to a private collection. The hourglass has not stopped. And here's your eerie ritual. On the Isle of Andros, it was believed that before one could pass into true sleep, a final memory had to be surrendered. Not the greatest, nor the most painful, but the one most quietly held. Elders told stories of dreamers who refused to let it go and became trapped between sleep and wake, echoing across water like lost birds. You said, there is nowhere left to go. And nothing chasing you. There's only time, and it's not in a hurry. The spiral begins to loosen. You feel it not in your bones, but in your breath, as if the pressure that's followed you downward for what feels like forever is finally exhaling. The chamber you now enter is circular again, but bare. No artifacts, no relics, no carved scripts or silent watchers, just a space held together by quiet and shape. This is the chamber of the last thought. The drowned kingdom believed that before a soul could dissolve into the deep, it offered up one final thought. Not aloud, not intentionally, just something that rose naturally like steam from a cooling cup. This chamber was built to hold those thoughts. There's nothing to see, no display, no shimmer of revelation, just the sense that you are in the presence of every final word never spoken. You sit again, this time in the center. You don't think of anything, and that oddly is exactly what this place wants. It's here not to take, but to let go. Let go of the maps, the spiral, the chambered dreams, the salt brittle artifacts, the long walk down. You don't forget them, you just no longer need to carry them so tightly. Tonight's historical whisper. In 1895, a monk recorded a recurring dream of a city beneath the sea where people spoke in silence and time moved backward. He believed it was a test sent by the gods. When he finally spoke the dream aloud, he fell asleep during evening prayer and never woke up. He was found with seaweed in his clenched fist, now preserved in glass in a monastery archive. And here's your quiet tradition. In one island community near ancient Delos, elders nearing death would sit in silence for a full day and night, offering no words, only gestures. At the end, a single sentence was written on their behalf. That sentence would be carved into a stone and tossed into the ocean, not for remembrance, but as a gift to the sea. Will you close your eyes? And whatever final thought this place was waiting for drifts gently out of you. The chamber does not thank you. It just releases you. Like a tide pulling back. Like an echo folding inward. Like a kingdom remembering how to sleep. You rise slowly, not out of obligation. There's no more need for ritual or ceremony, just gravity and something gentler than purpose. The path ahead is soft, padded with something like moss but lighter, drier. It cushions your steps as if the kingdom itself wants to cradle your departure. You begin to ascend. Yes, ascend. The spiral has turned. But it doesn't feel like returning. It feels like surfacing from a very old thought, like finishing a sentence you didn't realize you'd been speaking your whole life. You pass a chamber that hums faintly. You don't enter, you don't need to. It knows you were here, that's enough. The walls grow lighter with every step, not in color but in presence. It's like walking through your own memory of a dream. The details begin to soften, the salt recedes, the silence grows gentle again. You're nearing the surface of something. A room appears ahead, barely there, just a circle of columns and a patch of sky far above. The water somehow no longer surrounds you. There's no drowning here, no sinking. This is the vestibule of returning. It is the last chamber. And the first. As the queen once said, according to a fragment carved into a broken statue toe found beneath. As every ending is a shore we reach only by turning inward. You stand at the center of the room. The wind moves around you now. It's dry, clean, the scent of sage and sun-warmed stone. There's a final pedestal here. It holds nothing. But your shadow does. It holds the spiral. Not in its hand, in its shape. You've carried it all this way, not to lose it, but to become it. Tonight's historical echo. In 1982, a notebook was found washed ashore near Patmos. Waterlogged, illegible except for one line, the stairs are not a descent, they are a folding inward. The author was never identified. The paper, strangely, was made of a sea plant that has no documented use in papermaking. And your last strange belief before the sea lets you go. In a village now drowned off the coast of Laconia, parents used to whisper riddles to newborns before their first breath. The belief that bobbies carried answers from the place before birth, and riddles helped them forget. You place your hand over your heart. There is no key, no door. But the kingdom opens. Just a little. And you step forward. There is no more paths. Only light. It's not a brilliant, triumphant glow. No climactic sunrise, no divine fanfare. Just a softness that spreads gently over everything, like the world has finally taken a long breath and remembered how to sleep. The drowned kingdom does not rise, it does not vanish. It just folds quietly into your mind, like a tide turning in reverse. You are not the same person who descended, not entirely. But neither are you someone new. You are simply remembered. By this place, and now by yourself. There is a pool ahead, shallow, reflective. You kneel beside it. And this time when you look in, the face that looks back is not other, not older, not strangers. It's just you. And that's the most magical thing of all. The spiral is no longer something you follow. It follows you. Not hauntings, not bindings. Just gently tracing the edges of your thoughts. Awaiting, ready, not to pull you back, but to remind you that the deepest journeys do not end in ruin. They end in rememberings. Tonight's final historical murmur. In 2017, sonar scans of a trench near the island of revealed what looked like a perfect spiral etched into the larger than any human structure, unmapped and silent. It has never appeared on scans again. Some call it a glitch. Some say it was never meant to be seen twice. And one diver, upon surfacing from a dive near that spiral, simply whispered, "It's all still breathing down there." He never dove again. And your last forgotten tradition. On the quietest nights when the wind is soft and the tide is low, some islanders place a spiral shell on their windowsill, open side facing the sea. No one speaks about it, but the next morning the shell is always turned. Facing inward, you rise and take the final step. Not out, but forward, into the soft light, and the waiting quiet. You are no longer walking. You are drifting. Not through water or air or time, but through something slower, softer. The spiral, now quiet, coils gently behind your ribs, not pulling, not pushing, just resting. As around you, the walls have disappeared, or perhaps they've folded inward, too polite to follow you any further. The architecture of memory has completed its task. The drowned kingdom has no need for corridors now. It is inside you, and you are somehow still there. The final chamber is not a chamber at all. Just a wide-open space filled with a kind of hush so rich it feels like velvet draped over your ears. The light here has no source. It simply exists like breath or warmth or belonging. There is no throne, no altar, no final revelation carved in forgotten script. Of only a circle. A ring of small stones laid out carefully. Inside the circle, a patch of sand. In the center of the sand, a single spiral drawn by a fingertip. Ovrej. You sit beside it, you don't ask who drew it, you already know. All you did. Or willed. Or maybe it's been waiting all along, knowing you. Reach this exact point at this exact pace, after all those rooms and relics and riddles. Because, as the queen once didn't quite say, all who arrive here arrive not to discover, but to remember that they already knew. Tonight's final historical whisper. In 2021, a diver in the Aegean Sea took a photo of a spiral-shaped rock formation while exploring an uncharted crevice. When the image was developed, it contained an extra figure standing just at the edge of the spiral. No diving partner had been near. The diver claims he saw no one. He never returned to the site. But the figure, faint and featureless, remains in the photo. And your very last eerie tradition. On the island of, it's said that if you walk in a spiral around a sleeping person, whispering the names of forgotten places, they will dream of the sea. If they smile in their sleep, it means they've returned. You reach out and gently brush your finger over the spiral in the sand. Oh, it doesn't vanish. Oh, it deepens. And the wind that isn't wind stirs once, circling you like a lullaby. The drowned kingdom has folded back into itself and left you whole, not marked, not haunted, just a scene. Now take a deep breath, the kind that fills you with something softer than understanding. The kind of breath you take not when you're waking up, but when you're just about to drift away. Let your body sink just a little deeper into wherever you are. The blankets, the pillow, the couch, the space between thoughts. Oh, there's nothing left to search for tonight. No more rooms, no more voices, no more carved spirals waiting in the dark. You've walked every corridor, heard every whisper, watched the kingdom unfold and then very gently fold back in. You are part of it now. Not trapped, not changed. Just gently remembered by something older than stone and more patient than time. Let your thoughts scatter like seashells on the shore. Let your breath come easier now. And if your dreams feel a little saltier tonight, so well, that's just the tide giving something back. Well, good night, and thank you for wandering the spiral with us. Sleep well.